been jogging around South Minneapolis a lot. Right now I think I'm in that observation stage where I'm noticing the subtle differences in the community. I was drawn to community, I think, because I live in an urban environment. The style of my work is very approachable, kind of almost cartoon-like lines, simple lines that are easily understood. I'm trying to communicate what different people might experience in their community, try to convey that through my paintings. When I go jogging around Minneapolis, the further you go, the more change you can see from neighborhood to neighborhood. There's an obvious difference between race and class in just that short couple-mile span. We're so close, yet so different, and that's an interesting place to start. There's a beauty in how people in an urban environment interact with their community, where people bump into each other and what people are isolated. I'm curious about how community works, and I'm curious about the individuals in the community, curious about the history, about how our communities came to be how they are right now. I think people can see Minneapolis in my work. I've had people say, oh, I know where that is. But usually I try to keep it vague enough because I want the viewer to come in and see their experiences in my work too. It's not just about my view of community. Painting with my hands is very freeing. It kind of feels kind of neat to feel the texture of the canvas or panel or what I'm working on. The way I build my paintings, I guess I call it building paintings, is because I know that there's going to be many layers of paint on top of each other. And so I'm thinking kind of from that ground layer up. When I begin a painting, it's not always going to end up being the painting that I think. There's a likelihood that I'm going to be painting over that painting in the near future and it's going to be something else. It's turned out to be a fun thing for me to paint over paintings, especially the paintings that you kind of like. It's a great feeling to destroy something like that and build up on top of it. The benefit it gives to the new piece is to know that the painting isn't such a precious thing. The actual painting and the process of the painting has more value to me. So if I had one canvas and I just painted over it and kept painting new paintings on top of it, I think I would be pretty happy doing that. So while I was working as a graphic designer, I'd be sitting in my office and playing the game of, if I won the lottery, what would I do? And I'd keep going back to, well, I would go back to school to get my teaching license and be a special education teacher. A lot of my peers that I was in class with were going into special education because they had somebody in their immediate family who was living with a disability. I didn't have an experience like that. I started to formulate this idea to turn an art project into an opportunity that will allow me to understand more what it's like to live in the community with a disability.
I'm Hadar Copley Woods, and I worked with Eddie on the Shadow Project. He had done things on community, and he felt like he knew what it was like to be part of a community, but he really wanted to see what community meant to people who were very much not like him. And in his mind, he believed that probably disabled people had a profoundly different experience of community from what his experience had been. And I really liked that reason because he's right.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
I put together some sketches of some simple ideas of how I could represent kind of Hadar and her spirit and her interaction with her community. She's not quiet. She's not afraid to tell people what she thinks. And so I had the idea of having a yelling mouth as the wheel of a wheelchair to represent that.
I loved that. You know, I was kind of nervous, I have to say, because a lot of times when disabled people and able-bodied people try to connect or work together, it can be a little, even with the best of intentions, a little dehumanizing for disabled people. And I could tell right away that he just sees people in a deeply, profoundly human way, and I really liked that. And that was why I decided to work with him. So I took Eddie to the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis where he worked at the time, and I wanted him to see sort of the habitual way that people treat a visibly disabled person. At the time I wasn't in my chair, I was on my crutches. So we were walking through the Skyway and I'm looking over at Eddie and he's looking kind of freaked out.
Pretty soon I realized, well, I have a lot of space to walk. I'm not having to dodge anybody because everybody's creating a bubble around us and nobody's getting close. And then I realized that they're not looking at you, they're looking at me, because they're wondering, what's he doing with her? And she's got her crutches, and what's going on? Because you can kind of read what people were thinking. That's what we were like, whoa, they're staring at me now. It was a completely new experience. I still look back on it, and I'm just kind of blown away by what happened and what that experience was like.
Eddie took my experience and the experience of the other disabled people seriously. I loved looking at the other paintings as well. He took us seriously, but he made it really fun and made it into a real connection. And I really loved that about working with Eddie.
I think the main thing that I learned is you need to listen and not be afraid to ask intimate and personal questions, because that's how you're going to learn the most. The reason I paint, I think, has changed over time. When I started off, I just liked to paint and I thought I was pretty good at it, and so I painted. But now I think I moved to trying to now communicate something with my painting.